God bless everybody today. It's July 20th of 2024. I've got a video here that I think is extremely cool that I want to produce to you guys, show you some information. I don't know whether this will happen or not, but I've had a number of events in sequence that have brought me to a conclusion in the last couple weeks. I had done a video a couple weeks ago, actually, I believe about 13 days ago, about some astrological events, solar eclipses, blood moon events, and things that I had added to the paradigm that I've been working on. But I realized just yesterday something had culminated to bring me to a place of conclusion in this, and I wanted to show it to you. And so approximately on July 6th, I had made these changes on the paradigm chart. And what I'm alluding to is I had put an additional number of solar eclipses and blood moon events on my chart. Now, to find the chart, you can go to my free Wix site. I don't sell anything out here other than just information. Hopefully I can warning people what's coming. That's my only purpose out here, is to let you know where you are in time and that you need to be putting oil in your lamp as we move forward into the end of this year, as we move through an extremely volatile election cycle and a number of things happening. So if you go to endofdayssurvival.com and you come down to these PDF files in the middle of the page, I have updated a number of these files, as you can see, but we're going to go to this last file, and once you click on this, it's going to bring up my timeline chart. So I found a really cool site that I've been using, and it added additional information to the site on all these additional blood moon and solar eclipse events that run through basically the Shemitah cycle, and I took it all the way through to the end of 2029. And so just be aware that I've added all these additional events. But what happened was, in the middle of this, I realized that on October 2nd of 2024, during the Feast of Trumpets, the beginning of the Feast of Trumpets, on the very first day of the Feast of Trumpets of 24, we see an annular solar eclipse. So we're in this gap of area of time right here. And this is extremely important because Turkey's getting ready to invade Syria. They've locked Iraq down, and Israel's getting ready to invade, or we're going to see a confrontation between Hezbollah and Israel, which will, I believe, will bring Turkey into this confrontation. So once you see Hezbollah light up and Israel either attacks into that country or Hezbollah goes against Israel itself, we're going to see this happen. So I think you're going to see a ramp up because we've seen a Hamas leader die in the last few days, which I believe usually you see some type of retaliatory strike on the other side when these types of things happen. And so this Hamas military leader died about 5 or 6 days ago in Gaza. And then we had another leader, or a top commander of Hezbollah, also die within the last day or so. The third thing that I think will affect this picture is that the World Court has come out against Israel for their occupation of a number of these areas. And so this is just heating up on a number of levels, and it's just applying more and more pressure to Israel. And it's turning the world opinion against Israel as we move forward. So how does this potential annular solar eclipse on the Feast of Trumpets affect us as we move forward? And I believe if you go to Amos 8, you will see an event there that resonates with what's coming up in the end of September as we move into the first part of October, around October 2nd of 2024. So if we go to my day count, I'm going to do this before we get into this. Today, July 20th of 2024, we're at 1,525 days to the Feast of Trumpets of 28, September 21st. I believe that's when rapture will occur. You're at the end of the Shemitah cycle as we move forward, and so this is extremely important. So this event that's going to happen will happen in the next couple months, on October 2nd, I believe. Now, this is my opinion based on the information I found through my analysis, and so it may or may not happen. And I always tell you that I'm not I don't have a crystal ball. I can't guarantee these things, but they do seem to line up. And when they do line up, I will bring them to your attention. So let's look at Amos 8 and why it matters to what we might be moving into in the next few months. So in Amos 8, God is talking about how he showed Amos this basket of summer fruit. And this is extremely important because we're in that summer period of time that he's talking about right now, moving into fall. And so he says, Amos, what do you see in front of you? And he says, I see a basket of summer fruit. Then said the Lord unto me, the end is come upon my people of Israel, or the Jewish people. I will not again pass by them anymore. So he's at the end of his rope here, and he's going to place judgment down on the Jewish people. And I talked about this. Look, in the seals, we have a judgment against Israel that leads up to an exodus of 1/3 of the Jews for the 1260 days that are hidden in the hidden place in Edom for the 1260 days when Antichrist is on the ground, because he protects or shields them or veils them. So it's extremely important that we understand where we are in what Amos is talking about. So we're in the seals right now. We're moving into tribulation. Tribulation will start once the signing of the treaty between the nations against Israel occurs. And so he's explaining to us that, look, you have a summer basket of fruit. You need to understand where you are. And that by the time I hit the end of summer, I am going to bring judgment upon my people, and I will pass by them no more. And what he means by that is he's going to place judgment. He's done listening, okay? He's done listening. Their prayers aren't resonating at this point. The bad behavior in Jerusalem and Israel is extreme, just as it is here in the United States, as it is all over the world right now. That's why we're in this period of time, as we are in. Basically, the world is in Sodom and Gomorrah right now, and he's getting ready to judge the world. So it's extremely important that when we read these things, we understand what he means. Now, most people would look at this and go, what's he mean by a basket of summer fruit? He's talking about the season prior to the fall feast, okay? And he's going to sort of explain that to you as you move forward. And so as you get into the next few months and you see Hezbollah's front open up, as well as Turkey starts to invade to go down into Lebanon and down into Palestine to help the Palestinian people and also the Lebanese people at this point, because Israel's getting ready to start up a front against them. This is getting ready to happen. And so listen to what he's talking about here, and then I'm going to show you this event that's extremely important that resonates in this chapter. So the songs of the temple shall be howlings in that day, said the Lord God. There shall be many dead bodies in every place. They shall cast them forth with silence. And what he's talking about is as Israel goes under siege here and we start to open up these new fronts, there's going to be dead bodies piling up all over the place, and Israel won't have the ability to remove these bodies or even bury a lot of them because the carnage is going to be extreme. And so he's trying to warn Israel ahead of time, just as I am trying to warn Israel ahead of time, that this is getting ready to come upon them. So he tells them, hear this, O ye that swallow up the needy, even to make the poor of the land to fail. And so he's telling them, you're getting ready to fail. You need to listen, that it's not going to be pleasant like a lot of these false prophets or teachers are telling them, that they're just going to be saved by God and they're not going to go under judgment and it's just going to be beautiful out here. That's not what's coming. Okay, so he's warning them. I'm warning them because God is warning us through the Bible that this is coming upon them and they're not listening. So he says, look, saying, when will the new moon be gone, that we may sell corn? He's talking about the end of fall now. We're moving into the fall. The Sabbath, he's talking about the Sabbath. We will set forth wheat, making the ephah small and the shekel great, and falsifying the balances by deceit. Now, because October 2nd of 2024 is the beginning of the civil calendar, that would be a new moon. And so he's alluding to this very specific time at the end of the growing season, and that they would probably be doing deceitful things because they're trying to prop up their economy and things like that, because they're moving into a massive war between multiple groups. And so this is going to start to weigh on the Israeli economy tremendously. And you have to think about it, as Israel's getting locked down, and if Turkey comes down, they're going to lock down the Mediterranean Sea so that there's going to be nothing coming into Israel. And so you're talking about a siege of attrition over time where, in any siege, usually what happens is they run out of food, or because of the death, there's a lot of disease in the area that's contained behind the walls, in this case in Jerusalem and things like that, as Israel's being literally under attack, because that's what's coming next. Israel will be invaded and we will start to see a siege towards Jerusalem. And so he's trying to explain this to you, that this is coming, but they're going to do whatever possible to shore themselves up prior to this breakdown. And that we may buy the poor for silver and the needy for a pair of shoes. Ye sell the refuse of the wheat. And so he's talking about how, they're eliminating a lot of their stock, which they should be holding, because they're going to need the food stores and things like that, but they don't necessarily believe that they're going to be under this massive judgment that he's telling them is coming upon them. Now he's talking about how he won't forget the works of Jacob, and so not the land tremble for this, for everyone mourn that dwelleth within. And so it's going to be extremely terrible time that's coming up. And as you walk into verse 9 here, you're going to start to see this terrible time that I'm talking about. And it shall rise up wholly as a flood. And so it's sort of like he's talking about a flash flood in a sense, that it's fine at one moment of time, and then all of a sudden this wall of water is heading toward you and you're trying to figure out what to do about this and how you're going to get out of the way, and there's nowhere to escape to, so you're just going to get washed in this flood of water or pain that's getting ready to come onto Israel. And then look at what he says as we move forward into Amos 8 here, verse 9. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord God, that I will cause the sun to go down at noon, and I will darken the earth in a clear day. And this is where I think it gets extremely important. And I'm talking about how this is going to affect us, I believe, on the Feast of Trumpets of October 2nd of 2024. And this might be an actual event that's going to actually occur on this planet. So he's talking about this solar eclipse. He will cause the sun to go down at noon and will darken the earth on a clear day. So he will darken the earth at this time. And then it says something extremely important in verse 10, and I will turn your feasts into mourning. I will turn your feasts into mourning, all of your songs into lamentation, and I will bring up sackcloth upon you, all loins, and baldness on every head, and I will make it as the mourning, as if you lost your only son, and the end, therefore, as a bitter day. And so what he's saying is this is going to be so bad. It'll be like losing your only child. Your inheritance will be gone because your only son, your firstborn son, your only son in this case, will perish in front of you, and you will mourn at that level of grief. And on this bitter day that he's talking about, he says, behold, the days come, saith the Lord God, that I will send a famine into the land. Not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but a hearing of the words of the Lord. And so it's extremely important that he's going to have a judgment placed down on this nation as well as the world, because we're all in this one together, and that he's going to force them to reconcile with him. That they're not, this is going to be so bad that they're going to mourn like their only son has perished, and they're going to be looking to God for understanding in what is happening to them in their country and why they're under this judgment, when most of the churches and things have told them they have not, or they're not going to be under this kind of judgment, that it's just not going to happen to them. And so they need to understand that. And then look at what he says. They shall wander from sea to sea, and from north even to east. They shall run to and fro and seek the word of the Lord, and shall not find it. In that day shall the fair virgins and young men faint for thirst, they that swear by the sin of Samaria, and say, Thy God, O Dan, liveth, and the manner of Beserabah, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, liveth, even they shall fall and never rise up again. And so he's talking about this massive judgment coming upon these people and how it's going to affect everyone in the country, everyone in Jerusalem. All Jews are going to be affected by this, as well as anyone in these countries, and how it's going to resonate in the near future. So how does that resonate today, and how is that going to affect us as we move into the fall feast this year, which start on October 2nd of 2024? So let's get into the charts now, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. But I wanted to go through this because you need to understand that he's talking about a number of things here. He's talking about, look, you're going to have okay, I want to bring this up before I get into the chart because I think it's important. I've talked about how if you have a 6 seal event in March of this next year, it could be a tectonic volcano earthquake nightmare, and how that could potentially put us into a sort of like nuclear winter due to the ash clouds and things like that. And so this might be the last summer to produce real food, and that you need to get your stores or your oil ready because you might not be able to literally grow shortly after this. not only in Israel, but here, okay, because it could affect the whole planet. The sixth seal event occurs, and then you have four trumpets that go off that change everything before an antichrist rise. So you need to understand the severity of the situation. And so he's saying possibly here also that this summer basket of fruit might be your last before you go into judgment. That's not only in Israel, but in the world itself, including the United States, and how once you sell your corn, wheat, and all this stuff, and you do whatever possible to gain as much wealth as possible out of that sale as you move into fall, as the world's starting to collapse, as the global economy starts to collapse, you start to realize you need to shore up your stuff. And so basically he's saying, look, this could be your last season of growing. Okay, it will be for Israel anyway. And if you have this sixth seal event, as I've been talking about in March of 25, through Ramadan and all the events that are coming up in that huge chain of events on my chart there, you're going to realize that we are moving into an extremely rough time as we move into this new season of fall. And so he's saying, look, if you know you're in the summer season of growing, you better take advantage of it, because you're going to walk into this turning of the feast into mourning. And this is where it gets interesting. So on this day, he talks about how he's going to make the sun go down at noon. This is extremely important, guys. I can't stress to you how important this could be. He's talking about how the sun could go down at noon and will darken the earth on a clear day, and that he will turn the feast into mourning and songs into lamentation, and basically make it a bitter day that moves forward as we move into tribulation. Okay, and that he's going to send not only famine across the land in general, but a famine of the word. And another thing that I should point out before, and I know this is getting a little longer than I want to go, but I think these are important things to be brought up. This famine of the world is going to be of the word is going to be extremely important. The reason I say that is, look, once the pre-rapture people realize they're not pre-raptured and they're still here, they're going to be questioning the churches and their ministers on why this is happening to them, and they haven't done anything to get ready, and now prices are hyperinflating, and they don't have the ability to do anything to put oil in their lamp, and things are just getting extremely bad out here, and they don't have the answers, and so they're going to be leaving these mega churches and looking for answers. But they won't find them because nobody seems to understand the truth out here. And guys like me don't gain traction because nobody wants to listen to us. We're nobody. So I've been out here warning you for 8 years on videos that this is coming up. My very first video was about Daniel 8 and how Turkey was getting ready to come down during this period of time, around this period of time, and how this was going to affect you. Okay, I've been warning you for years. Now he's warning you, and we're going to see this play out. But now I want to take you to the charts because this is extremely important. And the things I want to re-stress here before we go here is that the sun will go down at noon. You have a solar eclipse in a clear day, and it will turn your feasts into mourning and your songs into lamentation, and that people will basically break the church. It'll break the churches. You'll have this massive falling away, and then people will go out and either curse God of their situation, or they'll be going out and looking for truth and real answers. And hopefully that's when guys like me and others like me will come into the picture, because we've been trying to explain this to them for some time and no one's listening to us. So recently I started to realize that I had some gaps in my solar and lunar eclipses, and so I went to time and date and found the worldwide ones, and you can do these for whatever year you want to see them. It gives you all of the dates. I've added these to the paradigm chart, the timeline chart, so you can see how they fall in the different events that are sequenced that's getting ready to happen. And so as you come down into the chart, it will give you all of this, the solar and lunar eclipses and different things like that. And you can actually click on these different links and they will go into more detail. This is the one that we're extremely interested in today, and that's on October 2nd. Okay, why is that important? Because it falls directly on the Feast of Trumpets on the very first day. Okay, this is extremely important. So in the biblical fall feast of the Feast of Trumpets, that begin on the first day of the seventh Hebrew month of Tishrei, which is in September or October. In this case, it falls on October 2nd. The date of the Feast of Trumpets varies in the Gregorian calendar, but usually falls between the second week of September and the end of October. In 2024, the fall feasts begin on the sundown of October 2nd and end at nightfall of October 4th. And that's why I said their day starts in the evening of the night before and then moves forward. And so I always explain this stuff to you because it's confusing, especially to the Gentiles that don't use Jewish calendars. And most of the churches in the United States or the Christian nations don't use Jewish calendars. And that's extremely important because that links you back to the Torah, and that gives you the laws and it gives you the commandments and the things that God wants us to follow. And so that's extremely important. So you have on this very day of October 2nd an extremely important event happening on that day. So when you come back to this time and date calendar of 24 and you go to October 2nd and you click on this, it brings up a really cool chart. It's really cool because it gives you, I love countdowns like this. Today, as I talked about, we're at 1,525 days to the Feast of Trumpets 28. September 21st, and so that's extremely important. This tells you how many days we have till this event. So you have 74 days, 4 hours, 30 minutes, and 32 seconds at this moment in time before this solar eclipse happens. And it's extremely important that we look at this solar event because I believe it's going to impact us. Now, I want to come down to this map here because this to me is extremely cool. And I think once you see it, you'll think it's extremely cool also. So I'm going to get extremely a little technical on you guys here because I want you to see the time frame here. So look at the timestamp right now as this solar eclipse starts to move down. And it's going to move down just as it says in the Amos 8. It talks about the sun moving down. Okay, this is extremely important. Watch the trajectory of how this moves also. But also I want to show you this timestamp. Okay, so on October 2nd of 2024 at 1645 UTC, and what I mean by that is if you convert that to my time frame, you'll realize that this solar eclipse is going to pop out right around noon in my time frame. Now, I don't think it matters that it's my time frame, but it's interesting that it falls in my time frame around noon. And you go to Amos 8, it talks about how that's going to happen around noon. And so let's go back and look at that real quick. And so it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord God, that I will cause the sun to go down at noon, and it will darken the earth on a clear day. So I'm going to move this forward manually because I think it will give you a better than just watching it play out. So I want to do this because it will actually, I can stop it and show you specific things. So let's run this forward. Okay, so right around here, you see the solar eclipse start to occur. It actually pops out right at noon, and you start to see this event occur. as you run this forward and you get down to about in here, this would be in my time zone, okay? And like I say, that wouldn't be in my time zone over there, but it pops out around noon based on my time zone. So I don't know where that falls in anybody else's time. Right now, it would be about maximum uh, eclipse at this point, or it's at maximum where it's totally covered. And then it ends up finishing over the end of South America. And I think the other thing that's extremely important is if you look at how this plays out, this solar eclipse is moving down, okay? It's actually moving down. So if you go to Amos, that's exactly what it says is supposed to happen. So I'm going to bring you back to the passage or the verse. It says, "And it shall come to pass on that day, saith the Lord God, that I will cause the sun to go down, trajectory down at noon," whatever that means. And I'm just speculating in my time zone. It's at around noon that this is going to start to affect us and actually hit maximum eclipse around noon in my time zone. I don't know what that means anything at all, but it's interesting, at least to me. And that I will darken the whole earth on a clear day. Now, what does he mean by that? That the whole earth will go dark? And it will be a sign to the earth that things are going to start to break. And so it's not just an eclipse over a specific area. He's literally saying, I will darken the earth in a clear day. It will literally be one of those really weird events where you can barely see for a period of time. I mean, I'm only speculating here, guys, and it will happen like a flood is coming over us. Like a flash flood is going to happen. It's going to turn our feast into mourning. And so he's going to take the fall feast, which should be a marriage ceremony of happiness and gladness and, celebration and things like that. And he's going to turn it into mourning and lamentation. In a bitter day. I'm saying that I think this is going to happen in September or October 2nd of this year, around that time. We could see an extremely interesting event happen. And due to this is going to send a sign across the world that will then break the churches, and they will go out forward and either curse God or they will look for truth, because the churches have lied to them and the pre-rapture thing has not occurred. And so this is extremely important that we understand that this may happen. And like I say, I always leave the out that it may not happen. But there's a big possibility as we walk into this election cycle and our economy starts to break down, and it is. I'm watching an inversion of a yield curve between the 2 and 10-year bond that we've had for almost 2 years now, that when it does uninvert, probably around September, October, based on my charting, we're going to watch this turn into a nightmare as we walk into the election cycle. And you could potentially see that Soros blue wave get placed out here. And what I mean by that is, look, I've said for some time, and I don't want to get political, but it's biblical at the same time. The Democrats will do anything to hold power. They will do anything to hold power, to the point where they would even possibly try to assassinate Donald Trump, or eliminate Joe Biden in some fashion through COVID, which would then give you Kamala Harris, and then we would disrupt the election cycle to leave her in place as a puppet, and unleash the blue Soros machine to disrupt the elections so we can't have them anymore. And I'm telling you, we're 4 months from this, and if we start to see the cycle play out as Israel's getting ready to go into a massive judgment and being attacked by multiple fronts through possibly Turkey, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis just launched a strike on them in their own, in Israel, on Tel Aviv. You're starting to watch this collapse. Once Turkey comes in, they're going to lock the Mediterranean Sea down, and that's going to then turn Israel basically into an isolated country that has no friends, okay, and no way to get things into them, and so they're going to go under siege and into famine, as it indicates. But not only famine by food and water, but by the word of the Lord himself, because they're not drinking the proper water. The water they've been drinking is poisonous, okay, because it dilutes the word that God's been giving them, telling them that they're not going to be under judgment, and then somehow God's going to rescue them, and the Gentiles on the other side are going to be pre-raptured before we even go through any real trouble or turmoil or distress or anything like that. Is all a lie. And guys like us have been coming out here for some time telling you that they're going to go under massive judgment. The world's under massive judgment. There's going to be a remnant taken out of this place around March of next year, probably during Ramadan, as you move into the end of that really cool cycle there also. And I'm going to make another video about this that attaches it to this one, because you have another event of sequences of 15 days of lunar and solar eclipses that have happened during the month of March in 2025, which I think is going to take you into a sixth seal event, a red heifer event, and an exodus of the 1/3 of the Jews that are taken into the hidden place for 1260 days. And so we need to understand all the things that are going on out here. But is he alluding to this, an event that's coming up in October, on October 2nd, that we're going to start to see a sign, an actual sign out here, guys? A sign from God that tells us where we are in time. And Amos wrote it down and gave it to us in this chapter so we would understand it, because it's being illuminated in the end, because God said he would give us all the answers before things get here if you want to listen. If you want to truly listen to him through the people down here, because that's all you got. You got guys like me trying to explain it to you. We don't have prophets. Back in the day, the prophets were led by God, okay, because he talked to them, literally talked to them. Jesus or an angel or something would pop up in front of them, Gabriel, Michael, whatever, and they'd explain things to them. Look, we don't have a lot of that nowadays. It's a different type of prophecy. It's guys like me that are sitting there looking at the book, trying to dissect it down and bring you the best possible information and truth that we can, so you can see what's coming, and that he's actually giving people all kinds of information out here. Look, I just had Trump was almost assassinated, and there was a man, Brandon Biggs, I believe is his name, had forecasted or had seen a image or images of this actual event occurring. Now, it wasn't exactly as he said, but he said, hey, I see this bullet fly by Trump's head on his right side, and it hits his ear in April, and then he gets shot in July. Okay, so many people out here are getting images and dreams and visions and all kinds of stuff. And I'm telling you that we're leading you to a place of truth, because these people are going to be in a famine of truth that they've been lied to, and the churches are getting ready to be fallen away from here, because Look, when the churches realize that there's no, the people in the pews realize that there is no pre-rapture uh, type event before the Feast of Trumpets of 28, or at least the fall feasts occur, as he tells us in Leviticus 23, that you need to understand the seasons and times that you're in and that we're here, okay? And so I'm just bringing this to your attention, and hopefully we'll see something miraculous happen on October 2nd, the Feast of Trumpets. Anyway, God bless and have a great night.